Okay, welcome to the section 15 of Rahula's Bodhisattva Ideal in Buddhism, Anthology, A-Level Buddhism, Edexcel. Let's read it and then we'll analyze it. The three states of the Stravaka, the Prakya Buddha, and the Buddha are not mentioned in the Nithyakanda Sutra of the Sodapathic Patha, the first book of the Nithyakanda Nikaya. One of the five collections of the Theravada Tripitaka, it says, that by practicing virtues such as clarity, charity, morality, self-restraint, etc., one may attain, among other things, the perfection of a disciple, Savaka Parama, enlightenment of the Pratyeka Buddha, Paki Bodhi, the Buddha domain, the Buddha Bhumi. They are not called yanas, vehicles. So, what does this third time that Rahula is changing both identity and essence statements, the meaning of them now all add up to these three states of, let's highlight these three states of the Stravaka, okay, Sangha would say that, the Prakya Buddha, and not the Bodhisattva Yana, but the Buddha. Okay, what's he saying here? Well, notice again he's using the term Buddha, but for the third time now, not now Bodhisattva as the identity statement that he's left out as he presses home his rhetoric, his coercive, perhaps non-persuasive speech. This is now not argument, but repetitive, discursive, tactical, bulldozing us into capitulation to his ideas. And what we need to apply here is an idea called discourse analysis that has its roots in biblical studies, the hermeneutics of suspicion. Today, discourse analysis is used by people like Foucault to ask, what is the standpoint of the writer? What is their agenda? And how do we speak truth to power? How do we uncover the agenda of the writer? And the agenda of Rahula's polemical religious agenda is fairly clear here, to say the least. So what is the Nithyakanda Sutra of the Mundana Patha, the first book of the Nithyakanda Nikaya, the five collections of the Theravada. There's a claim. Theravada Tripitaka. Is it the Theravada? Well, maybe. So the Nithyakanda Sutra is a discourse on the amount of savings, things you save, you enjoy, rewards you get because of the practice of Buddhism. It's a short one-page sutra. And actually, it's a bit of a stretch to interpret the text as he does, as Rahula does, if you read it. That it says all the things he thinks it says. What about the container that's in? So the Nithyakanda Sutra is in a collection called the Nithyakanda Patha. Well, this is a container, a collection of short sutras, the first, in fact, of 15 sutras. And this whole collection is in, like a Russian doll, in a third level container, the Kunda Nikaya, a collection of these 15 minor texts. Now, this includes other important texts. You know of the Dhammapada, the Jakata, you should know of Udana as key Buddhist texts. So what is then the five collections of the Theravada? Now, that's key. Theravada Tripitaka. Well, before we go on, the Tripitaka is neither Theravada or Mahayana. These are terms he is smuggling in to brainwash you into thinking Theravada is original and proper Buddhism. Now, it might be true that the writers of the Theravada, as we've argued, particularly the writers who wrote the Abhidharma, the monks who prevailed at the Council of Asoka and perhaps in earlier councils, had proto-Theravadan ideas, but it's not fair to call the Tripitaka a Theravada text. Nevertheless, of the three parts, the Vinyapitaka, the Sudapitaka, and the Abhidhamma Pitaka, what is the Sudapitaka? Well, you should know this from your A-level studies. The Sudapitaka is a collection of suttas or discourses attributed to the Buddha and a few of his closest disciples. It contains the central teachings of Theravada Buddhism, more than 1,000 suttas translations. The suttas are divided amongst 5 Nikyas or collections. What are the 5 collections? Number 1, the Dinga Nikaya, the long collection, the Majjhimaka Nikaya, the middle-length collection, the Samayutta Nikaya, the grouped collection, the Angarata Nikaya, the further factored collection, and our collection, the last one, the Kunda Nikaya, the collection of little texts, minor texts, 15 in total. Rahula just goes on to say, it says. Now, we have to be critical. When someone says it says, we have to ask the question, does it? Well, does it say? He's arguing that the 3 states are mentioned in the text, the Prakya Buddha as a sort of independent awakening, disciples, and Buddhas. Well, what sort of things does the Nithyakanda Sutra say? Well, it says the discriminations and the liberations and whatever perfections the disciples have, independent awakening on the Buddha ground, through this merit they may receive. So it talks about the Buddha ground, it talks about the disciples, the perfection of disciple. Doesn't quite mention the Prakya Buddha here, but there's not too much of a stretch. Or is it? It certainly says the things that Theravada would want to say, that it also teaches basic Mahayana essential ideas. No, it certainly doesn't. It's a real stretch to say the Pali Canon is referring to the same essence that Yogacara is teaching. No, the essence is different. And the names are different. The Pali Canon does not refer here to the Bodhisattva Yana. It's not mentioned. So does the Pali Canon specifically say that the Buddha, or remember he switched this for the word Bodhisattva, practice virtues such as charity, morality, self-restraint? Practicing virtues such as charity and self-restraint. Well, yes, it does. But a woman or a man who, through giving, that's dana, virtue, well, that's all the different virtues, restraint, and self-control, has well stored up his savings, placing them in a shrine or in the Sangha or in an individual or to a guest. But Basham would point out what he's not saying. Again, the Pali Canon doesn't teach things that Mahayana sutras teach, especially the Lotus Sutra idea of upaya, the idea that you should use skillful means, or the 8,000 lines onward, the idea of the vow. These are virtues that are key virtues, key parts of the 6 paramitas or the 10, not found in Theravada and not particularly found, we might argue, in the Pali Canon. So this is him using confusion to make his argument that Mahayana are basically Theravada. Not when you look at the detail of it. Certainly not. So what is the perfection of the disciple, the Savaka Parama? So again, the text does talk of this, the perfection of the disciple. The perfections listed in this sort of one-page text that he's referring to here in the Pali Canon and beyond are scattered across the collections of texts. And any attempt to group them together as 10 paramas, well, can be done, but it's an ad hoc process of harvesting them from proof texts, from varied unrelated texts. There isn't anywhere that they're systematized, but they are learning points. And at least 10 of the Jataka stories in the Pali Canon are of different sets of virtues. Now, Mahayana have their own Jataka tales that differ to the ones found in the Pali Canon. That's important because they want to have stories of upaya and stories of resolution, not these other Theravada ideas of nekama or renunciation. So what is the enlightenment of the Prakya Buddha? So the enlightenment of the Prakya Buddha. And is it significant? Again, Rahula's assumption is often the more simple Nikaya Buddhist, notice I haven't said Theravada Buddhist, contrast between the mundane and the supramundane, between the world of samsara and the unconditioned world of nibbana, which the Bodhi, the awakened one, is awakened to and reaches without remainder at death. Although the Prakya Buddha obviously is one who doesn't teach others. Or perhaps because he has the inability to teach others. So what does the term Buddha domain or Buddha bhumi mean, and is it significant? Here it is, the Buddha domain, Buddha bhumi. Well, the term Buddha means Buddha's ground, or the place, or the level of development. You certainly find that in the discourse on the amount of savings. And the meaning of the term is however, is not clear from the text. And even the commentorial traditions such as Buddha Ghosha understand it as teaching Buddha, a Bodhi who is discovered for themselves, the Buddha bhumi, and chooses to teach others. Well, so that isn't quite what we would think of as the Buddha. Perhaps Theravada perceive there is less need for this now, and they have the written teachings of the Pali Canon, that there should be these. So Buddhists, Theravada Buddhists, that I think there are such things as Buddha domains or Buddha bhumis, as actual personified individuals, or is rather this a reference to the canonical texts that are sort of living texts teaching us as the Buddha would teach us today? Maybe that's their preference. So they're not really going to emphasize, particular individuals as Buddha bhumis or Buddha domains. So is lastly Rahula right that the Pali Canon does not talk of yanas, vehicles? And does this matter? They are not called yanas, vehicles. Well, this last statement in this section is making a point from authority, an argument from authority. In exegeting the Pali Canon, he sought to argue there's only one path. These are not paths. They're all different ways of walking the one path. And the one path is the Arhat path, which even if the Mahayana don't know it, in his inclusivist or is it exclusivist viewpoint, they are effectively, soteriologically effectively traveling on, even if they don't recognize that essence in their identity words. And even if they don't identify it with, they are following it, and they should be following it if they want to get to the proper teleos, the end. This does seem to be a reverse tactic of the very early Mahayana tactic to say, yes, there's only one path, but it's the Mahayana path, Ekayana. And this is, so which is it? Is it the one true path that is really and truly Mahayana, or the one true path that is really and truly Theravada? Well, Rahula will say the latter. Mahayana, like a Sangha, will say the former. So this was section 15.